We've seen Shohei at the plate in Dodger blue. We've seen him on the mound, kind of. What can we expect from Shohei Ohtani this year? Let's talk about it. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. This is the daily podcast covering the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. You can make that easier on yourself by subscribing and get notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live on YouTube like we are here on Monday night. This is your first time listening, watching. I'm Vincent Perio. That's Jeff Snyder. And we've been doing this podcast, Locked On Dodgers, together, going into our 7th year now. We've been doing a Dodger podcast a little longer than that. We've been covering the Dodgers for over a decade, and we've been Dodger fans our whole lives. So safe to say the Dodgers are a big part of what we're about. And now that Shohei Ohtani is a Dodger, he's also a big part of what we're about. And Shohei Ohtani is something we're going to talk about today because pitchers and catchers reported, although we've already said that a lot of Dodgers had reported to Arizona before even this official date. But we got a look from the Dodgers social media team of Shohei Ohtani on the mound, Shohei Ohtani swinging a bat, and it reminds us that he will be doing both at some point this season. And with that, Jeff, what can we expect? 50-50 and a Cy Young, maybe a little bit too much, but also it might not be too much. Who knows?
So I say 60-60 and a Cy Young. Why not shoot for the moon? No, it's you can tell from the videos we've seen of him in the cage and now him on the mound that he is very much in early spring mode for both, not going all out. I was pleased to see the swing, even though you could tell the batting practice swing isn't, he wasn't really going all out. It still looks like the swing is there. And so that's a good sign from the shoulder surgery. I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you noticed, he was doing in that one video we saw, short little clip, but he was doing the Max Muncy, Nolan Arenado step back before the swing with his back foot. I don't know if that's just something he was doing that day or, if he's making some changes. It'd be interesting to see. I assume it's just something he was doing that day. But then on the mound today, we saw, very light. He's going through a windup. He's definitely pitching, but this is definitely not hardcore. It's what you would expect on February 10th. But just seeing him there, and we've seen it. You've seen it in person. You've taken video of it, of him throwing in the bullpen at Dodger Stadium. I've seen him, throwing flat grounds on the field at Dodger Stadium. But seeing him, knowing we are just, a couple months away from him pitching in a Dodger uniform is exciting because, as awesome as Shohei was with the bat last year, the reason that Shohei got the contract he did is because he's a unicorn, because he pitches and hits. And the fact that we're going to get to see the second half of that equation this year is really exciting. But I do think that it probably will slow things down on the offensive side. I don't expect much of a drop in the actual hitting. I think he will be, maybe not quite as good as last year, because last year was, kind of a career year even for him. But we've seen him win MVPs with great offense, even in seasons that he's been pitching when he was with the Angels. So I expect the offense to be really good. Where I find myself kind of forcing myself to temper my expectations is on the pitching side of things, because coming back from Tommy John is hard for anybody. Coming back from Tommy John when you are also hitting it's even harder. And so I'm hoping for 15 to 20 starts from Ohtani and an ERA in the mid to high threes. I don't need him to be awesome, amazing Cy Young caliber. That right there, because the Dodgers have built this rotation with so many guys, I think that would be huge. And then he can build up. And if he is, if pitching decently in May helps him pitch awesomely in October, it's all worth it. And we saw that last year. Like, all that matters, obviously not all that matter. You and I both preach enjoying the 6 months of the season, but if they can time things right so that a bunch of these guys are at their best in October, that's kind of what we're hoping for there, so that we can have yet another parade. But that's kind of the pitching side of things. I expect it to be a slow build to him getting back to dominance.
Yeah, you don't know what to expect. Guys coming off second, Tommy John or Tommy John-esque surgeries, it's a mixed bag, and it's been better as of late, obviously with new technology and everything that's going on, and the different name for a surgery, maybe not full Tommy John. Walker Buehler, we saw him take a while, and even then, maybe not until the postseason did we really see what Walker Buehler could be coming off this. Nathan Eovaldi is one of the other guys that's had two and has been able to be a pretty good starting pitcher in the big leagues. With Ohtani, it's hard not to have expectations as high as can be, because so far from everything we've seen with him, he's exceeded them. I mean, you look at his page on his baseball reference page, and all the numbers that he put up last year, and all the bold numbers that he had, where he was the best in the league and the best in the league, NL, best in the MLB, and you think, man, that's great. And yeah, I don't really expect too much to be taken away hitting wise. We don't know with the shoulder if that's going to have any effect on him. It is not the shoulder that you normally hurt when you have issues swinging the bat. So, Dave Roberts expressed that wouldn't be a big issue. Freddie Freeman was marveled that Ohtani could even lift his arm over his head when it first happened initially. And based on the swings, they're not 100% in the cage swings, but based on the swings you've seen, like, you don't really see anything that's slowing him down. But on the pitching side, it's kind of hard to not think like, oh man, like if he just pitches to what he's done in his career, and he's made 86 starts in his career, he has a 3.01 ERA, he has a 3.31 FIP. He's had a lot of strikeouts, and yeah, I don't know what exactly they're going to look for him or tell him to do. It, is it a matter of, hey, we need you to just throw what you can early in the season, just get back into the swing of things, and then ramp it up velocity wise, and or even if you're telling Shohei Ohtani, hey, go throw 80% of what your 100% is, and it's fine. We'd rather have the 5 innings, and maybe you give up a little bit more runs, or you're not as dominant strikeout wise, but you can get through the innings, build the arm strength back up, and like you said, kind of time it out to similar to Walker Buehler did last year, where his best performances were in October.
Yeah, and that's all we can really hope for. Another guy I was thinking of who has had 2 Tommy John surgeries. You were talking about guys who had 2 Tommy Johns and returned as starting pitchers. I was thinking of Daniel Hudson, who had 2 Tommy Johns early in his career, and after the second one, didn't come back as a starter, came back as a reliever, and ended up having a long career as a reliever, 10 years as a pretty darn good reliever. I do wonder if that might be in Shohei's future as kind of a dominant reliever, but I think at least for these first few years of the contract, they're going to be expecting him to be a starting pitcher, and I think he's going to ease his way into that. And I think by September and October, we are going to see the guy who, like you were saying, strikes out a bunch of guys. I mean, you look, his career whip is just over 1. He is, and the last 3 years that he pitched, I mean, he has been one of the best pitchers in baseball from 2021 through 2023, 284 ERA, a whip of 1.051, 11.4 strikeouts per 9 innings, just dominant starting pitcher. And I do think we'll see that this year, but not immediately. And the other thought I had on this that I was looking when I was looking at Daniel Hudson's page, Daniel Hudson won a Silver Slugger in 2011 with the D-backs?
I did not know that.
Yeah, I bet Daniel Hudson even forgot that.
Yeah, so with Ohtani, I'm not gonna put the biggest, like you said, 60-60, 50-50, whatever it is, but I'm not gonna rule him out. And I'm honestly just hoping for health, That's the biggest thing with this Dodger team. That's the biggest thing with Ohtani. And, they won it all last year, and he didn't pitch at all. And, now we get a season where he's expected to pitch. And we saw in the World Baseball Classic, like, they brought him in to close out that, before that was the only barometer we had for him in like kind of big games once he got to the major leagues. But, they brought him in. And if the Dodgers have Snell, Yamamoto, Glasnow, like if everyone's healthy in October, Shohei could be a guy that, maybe isn't a starter or maybe is the fourth starter, but can come in different situations if they need to. Like there'll be a lot of different ways, but it's all going to play out how it plays out. But it is exciting to think about him pitching this year for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. There's other pitchers that we're excited about, and that's what we're going to get to. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And with FanDuel, you don't have to get in all your bets before the game starts. You can get those bets in the middle of the game or in the fourth quarter or whatever it is, because you can get live bets throughout the game. So even if you missed the opening tip-off or you want to bet on that fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine those live bets into a same-game parlay. Had you watched the Laker game that just ended on Monday night, it would have been tough to bet on a fourth quarter comeback because the Jazz were not going to come back. But you could have found maybe players that you think were going to have success or realize, hey, this is a blowout. Guys like Gabe Vincent and Goodwin and guys on the Lakers that maybe, don't always get the ball majority of the time. We're going to have a ball majority of the time, and you could have put some same-game bets on them. So that's what FanDuel is here to help you out with. Take advantage of all those in-game and pre-game. And right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just go to FanDuel.com to join today. Remember, that's $150 in bonus bets at FanDuel.com if that first $5 bet hits. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers part of your day, your first listen, your last listen, any listen of your day. We appreciate you. If you are one of those that listens, if you want to help us out a little bit more, you can subscribe to get notified when our episodes are ready to go or when we're going live on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube already, you can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 2 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, Jeff. So, the official pitchers and catchers report day, the Dodgers have had more than a few guys at Camelback Ranch already. There was some photos, the social media team's out there now, some photos of the guys walking in today. And, we saw a mixture of pitchers and catchers and a couple position players. But we look ahead to the pitchers right now, and there's a lot to be excited for. Ohtani's one we just named. But we want to talk about a couple other pitchers that we had on our mind that we're most excited to see in the spring and into the season. So, Jeff, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, and some of these will be people we're excited to see. Others just were intrigued to see, because there are, for a team as good as the Dodgers are, there are a lot of question marks this spring, a lot of questions to be answered. And the good news is, we say this most springs, most of the questions have really good answers. No matter what the answer is, it's going to be a good one. It's just a matter of what the answer is going to be. But for me, on the pitching side, the biggest question right now is, how will Roki Sasaki adapt to playing in the U.S.? We went through this same thing last year with Yoshinobu Yamamoto, coming over to the slightly bigger baseball, the different pitching schedule, all those things. How is he going to adjust? And especially, there's even the added question, because Sasaki's velocity was down last year, and we know that one of his goals is to get that velocity back up, and it seems that he's not totally sure why the velocity was down. So I am really, really excited I'd be excited even if there were no question marks about Sasaki, just to see him. But because there are so many things to see, how does he make this adjustment? How quickly will he make this adjustment? All that stuff. I know he's going to be good. I don't know how good he's going to be in 2025. I know he'll get there, but I'm excited to see how quickly he gets there, what specific adjustments he needs to make, and how he goes about making those, and how that radar gun looks.
Yeah, the radar gun's definitely going to be interesting just coming off the last season and coming off, what teams had to do for homework in order to get the meeting with him and keep the meeting going with him. But for Sasaki, when guys come over from Japan, there's can go like two ways normally when it first starts off. And one is maybe American or not American, but MLB players don't know him as well. So you can find early success as a pitcher coming over from a different league. Or these players are much better than the players in the other leagues. And, the pitcher has to make the adjustments. And, with Yamamoto, it was kind of interesting last year because the Padres got to him. That first game, they didn't really get to him. It was a mixture of a few things, maybe some nerves. And then they got to him the second time they faced him. But he was really good against everybody else. And obviously, culminated in that Yankee start that he made in the regular season and then before he got hurt. And then when he came back, he was fine. And then, culminated in, again, a start against the Yankees in the postseason in the World Series. And Kodai Senga, came over and had really good success in the first year. We've seen a lot of guys come over and have that success. And I think for the Dodgers, it's the nicest of pillow landings for Sasaki. You don't necessarily have to be good right away. You don't necessarily have to carry a rotation or be counted on from anything more than one start a week for the most part for the Dodgers. Whereas, with some other teams, he might have been counted on for a little bit more. That might have added to that pressure, whatever it is. But I think, with Yamamoto, who just did it last year, with Ohtani, who did it a few years ago, with, everyone else that's in the Dodgers locker room when it comes to pitchers, you can't ask for a much better group to kind of work things out, figure things out. And, as we've seen with guys in the past of this skill level and talent level, they sometimes, more than often than not, rise to the occasion.
For sure. And so there's so many reasons why the Dodgers made sense for Roki. But one of those big reasons is that support system and mentoring system that he's going to have. So it'll be cool to see.
Yeah, on my end, the pitcher I'm most excited to see for a couple different reasons is Dustin May. I've been a Dustin May guy since the Dodgers drafted him, and he kind of came up through the system. And when he made his debut and everything else, and he had me excited because even though the strikeouts weren't quite there when he first came up, and he never really got to that point. 2021 was probably the best year he had in terms of putting guys away. But the stuff is just so nasty and it's so hard. And, from the height and everything that's coming at you, it's got to be, a little bit of the 3/4 action sometimes with him. And it's got to be intimidating to be in the box with him. And we haven't really seen him be that good for that long. I mean, the most starts he's ever made in a season is 10. And, you look at 21, 22, 23, 5 starts, 6 starts, 9 starts, and then 24, obviously nothing. And it's one of those temptations. This is the last year before he hits free agency, and you're just very tempted to see, one, if he did come back and how he's looking, and two, where he can find and factor into this, because he can be a starter. I've already advocated for reliever, but I feel like I advocate for relievers a lot of the time just because, if you're not good enough to be a starter legitimately, go to reliever and it could help you and get a boost there. But I'm obviously just excited to see him throw the ball and see if he can still move the way it did before.
A possible reliever role makes a lot of sense for Dustin May because the stuff is so good. The fastball is so hard already. And, most guys do add 1 or 2 miles an hour when they do switch to the bullpen to go on just an inning at a time. And so it is intriguing to picture Dustin May pumping 103 out of the bullpen. Could definitely be exciting. Obviously, they will give him a chance to be a starter, but the starting rotation is pretty loaded. And so that is why he is a very interesting one to watch this spring because, almost because he has that fallback of being a reliever, he might have to work a little bit harder to get that starting spot. Like Tony Gonsolin, similar situation to May, coming off injury and everything, doesn't have quite the upside in the bullpen, and has had more success as a starter than Dustin May, at least more sustained success. And so Yeah, May is going to be interesting. And, similar boat would be Bobby Miller. Obviously, Miller's coming off a terrible season, whereas May is coming off not pitching at all. But another guy who might be suited for the bullpen. And, can he, I've said before, I think Bobby Miller had some physical issue last year that wasn't properly addressed or that he wasn't aware of or something. So I'm interested to see that. But, I guess I kind of lumped Dustin May and Bobby Miller together in my mind, because even though they're coming from different situations, a lot of the characteristics are the same and a lot of the potential outcomes are similar.
Yeah, and the other thing with May, kind of on the point of this being his last year before free agency, is not that the Dodgers can be reckless with him, but they don't necessarily, have to show him anything really other, like they don't have to show him the loyalty of, oh, you're a starter, you can be a starter, or oh, we're going to make you a reliever and make you dominant. They can kind of mess and toy around and see what they can get. And, I'm just excited to see him off the mound, even though, like, realistically, he could be a candidate to, clear a roster spot at some point in the spring if he does look well and the Dodgers do have everyone else looking well. So we'll see what happens. But there's also the other side of the ball, position players. And yes, again, Shohei Ohtani is exciting on that side of the ball as well. But there's also other guys that we're looking forward to seeing in the spring and beyond. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. I want to thank you for being an everydayer. If you are one, an everydayer is just someone that listens or watches every day. We appreciate you if you are one of those people already. And if you're not, we appreciate you for listening right now. And we encourage you to add at least one more episode to your week to get up to the 5 a week that you need to be an everydayer. And, the Dodger season's here. Like, the spring training has begun. They'll be playing games in, about 10 days time or so, or less than that. And we're on a ride until hopefully the end of October, starting now. So make sure to go become an everydayer by listening or watching every single day. And remember, you go beyond the podcast, come Locked On Dodgers Insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Get text directly from us and get invited to our Discord server to talk Dodgers even more than you already do. So go check that out. And let's talk about position players now, Jeff. Who we're excited to see now, similar to the other side, we could have said Blake Snell. We could have said Tyler Glasnow. We could have said Yamamoto. And those all would have been justified answers and who we're excited about. On the offensive side, probably the same. You could say Shohei Ohtani. You could say Mookie Betts. You could say Freddie Freeman. And, you could say even Teoscar Hernandez. And those are all justified and right answers. And you can make a case for any of them. But with the Dodgers roster that's seemingly set 1 through 12 maybe on the position player side, it is interesting to see what the plan is and what people who actually has a chance to make the roster and beat out a spot. And I think for me, James Outman, coming off the rookie year he had last year and heading into last spring training, I think we talked about him a little bit, and he had posted some of the workout videos he was doing in the offseason and looking a little bit more jacked than he did the year before, and genuinely excited for the season. And then it just kind of fell apart. And that was one of the reasons the Dodgers had to scramble and make some other moves and different things, just because Outman didn't work out. Now Outman's in kind of the opposite of where he was last year, where he's not really guaranteed a spot in the starting lineup, not really guaranteed a spot, or at this point even penciled in as a spot on the opening day roster. And it's up to him to try and fight his way there. He is one of the, if not the only, natural center fielder, and he does hit left-handed, which the Dodgers would need in a bench or platoon role. But I just don't know what we can genuinely expect out of him, just because maybe the rookie season was the fluke, maybe last year was the fluke, but you don't really know.
And for me, the big concern about James Outman is even in the rookie season that was pretty solid, his strikeout rate was 31.9%, which is, the league average is around 22%. And so he struck out way more than the league average, even when he had a good season. And what we saw last year was that that strikeout rate went up even more. It was 35.3% last year in his time in the big leagues. In the minor leagues, he's always struck out a lot. And so that's, even before his rookie year, my concern with him was always, can a guy who strikes out too much in AAA really become a solid hitter in the big leagues? And so far, I still think the answer is no. And that's at least on a team that plans on winning the World Series. And that's the thing. Like, yeah, I guess maybe there's a role for him as a platoon guy, but if he's not a guy, like, even against right-handed pitching, he still strikes out too much. And so, you could see James Outman, because he plays good defense and does have power, a team that doesn't plan on winning the World Series would probably be perfectly happy to put him in center field, let him develop, and maybe he does eventually get that strikeout rate down to 26%, just above average instead of way above average. And by above average, I mean worse than average. But I don't think that the Dodgers are the team for that to happen. And so, yeah, he is interesting to watch because I think the only way I would be sold on Outman is if we see something totally different. We see him actually having fixed the contact issues. And, maybe we know he added some muscle this offseason. I'm not sure how that would affect the swing and miss. It's not like he was lacking in strength. But, I'm definitely interested to see what he can do on the offensive side of the ball this spring because, he's probably trade bait, I would guess.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, that's probably more what he is, which if he has a good spring, sell high.
Yep. For me, and similar to my pitcher, I was talking about how is Roki Sasaki going to adjust coming over from Japan. The guy I'm really interested to see on the offensive side is how is Hyeseong Kim going to adjust coming over from Korea? Because, he is he basically the opposite of James Outman. High contact, not much power. But I don't know what batting 340 in the KBO means in the big leagues. And we've seen guys like Jung-Hoo Lee with the Giants last year and whoever the other guy was recently that came over. I don't know why this is escaping me right now, but Hyeseong Kim. Both of those guys really, really struggled offensively when they first came over. And both of those guys, I think, were better hitters than Hyeseong Kim in Korea. And so definitely had more power. And so I'm really intrigued to see how well the contact skills carry over from Korea to the U.S., where the average fastball is probably going to be 4 or 5 miles an hour faster than what he's used to. It doesn't mean that the contact rate will go down, but it could. And, it kind of reminds me of the reason that Mike Trout dropped to the bottom of the first round of the draft was because he grew up in New Jersey, a cold weather state, didn't play against super great high school talent there. So you could see, this guy hits the cover off the ball. We haven't really seen him hit against good pitching. And so some teams were leery about drafting him. Obviously that worked out for the Angels. Mike Trout was good. And so Hyeseong Kim might have just as good a contact skills, be just as good a hitter in the big leagues as he was in Korea. It's just something that we won't know until we actually see it happening.
Yeah, and with him, it's interesting because he's 26. It's not like, and 26, back in the day, 25, 26 is kind of when guys would start getting calls up to the major leagues, other than the rare case. Guys are coming up a lot earlier now, so it's a little bit different. But, at this point, it's more about what he can do. And he said it at FanFest, and he was talking about what adjustments he's going to have to make and everything else. So it's basically the velocity here is much more, and, kind of felt like you just like swing earlier type deal, but that's not what it is. But there's different things to speed up your bat or whatever it is, different adjustments you can make to kind of get to that point. And I think he's the interesting one because when they signed him, it kind of came out of nowhere. When we found out he was the first call that he got was from the Dodgers, it seemed kind of interesting how interested they were in him. He kind of got anointed as, the next everyday second baseman. Then they kind of tempered that down a little bit. Then Gavin Lux got traded. And then, so now it's like, okay, who's going to play second base? And then, now he might be more of a utility guy. Like he hasn't even played an inning for the Dodgers in spring or anything. And he's already had a lot of different hats that he's worn since being signed to the team. And I think that's where this roster crunch becomes interesting with Kike coming back and then, Taylor, Outman, Pages, and Kim. Like, is he guaranteed to be starting on the Major League roster? Is that something that was kind of a handshake agreement that they made when he did pick the Dodgers and sign with them? Or is he legitimately here to compete for a spot? I don't know, but that he's definitely one of the more intriguing ones. And Hyeseong Kim struggled a little bit when he first came over. Eventually, got to the point where he was a serviceable Major League bat. But contact can be king sometimes. But if there's contact with nothing much behind it, I don't know how much that does for the Dodgers.
Yeah, and so it'll be definitely interesting to see, because that is something with his speed. We know he runs very fast. If he can put the bat on the ball, he could be a solid hitter. We know he plays really good defense at second base. And so, if he can be even an average hitter, he could be a starter for the Dodgers. I think when they signed him, they didn't plan on setting him to the minors, but I think they probably had that as a possibility in their minds, that he might need to start in AAA to get used to, because AAA has plenty of velocity. So if he's struggling with velocity in spring training, yeah, maybe you do start him in AAA, get him used to that a little bit. But I don't think that's their plan, but it's definitely an option. And so he's one who I am very intrigued to see this spring.
Yeah, and especially with the kind of the weird spring that the Dodgers are going to have because of the early trip, it might be one where he might just be on the roster in Japan just because. And then even when they come back, like you have a few more games after that. And I think with the way everything's set up, once Kike got signed back, I feel like the Dodgers are just kind of biding their time, and something will emerge or something will become to the point where you can't, Chris Taylor becomes unplayable. Like if he has a completely terrible spring, or, James Outman, it's completely terrible, takes his name off it, and maybe process of elimination that way. Or guys raise their stock, are able to get traded, or they, say, hey, Kim, we're going to start you in the minors. That'll buy some time for, whoever, Taylor or Outman or whoever, to get some Major League at-bats and, maybe one last chance at raising their stock, and then they kind of figure it out. But there's not a lot of overall intrigue for the Dodgers, seeing as most of their spots are locked up on the position player side. But there is that one big intrigue of who is that 13th man on the position player side.
Yeah, and we are like 10 days away from the first spring game, I think. I think it's on the 20th.
Yeah, I think it's even earlier than that. I think it's like the 18th or 19th.
Anyway, it's coming up soon, so we will get to see these guys playing soon enough, and I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm excited. Jeff, anything else before we head out for the night?
No. I just want to say you're welcome to all the Lakers fans. My Utah Jazz made it a successful first game for. I don't have a basketball team, you guys know that, but I did watch a full basketball game tonight. So after watching a full football game yesterday, I think I'm done with non-baseball sports for the year. So bring me spring training.
There we go. And then I'm gonna need the Kendrick update as you listen to.
Well, did you hear what I told Clint yesterday?
Yeah, that's why I said I'm gonna need the update once you listen to more Kendrick.
Yeah. I may be a fan, and I also realized Kendrick had a baseball card back in like 20.
Oh yeah, when he threw out the first pitch.
Yeah, I probably have that card, so I'm gonna have to dig that out. Got a Kendrick Lamar rookie card. So
there you go. All right, that's gonna do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. All you gotta do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can go beyond the podcast, come Locked On Dodgers Insider. We're going to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. Get text directly from us with Dodger updates, and get a link to our exclusive Discord server to talk Dodgers with other Dodger insiders. You can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles on YouTube. Those are two 24/7 streaming channels brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. We're on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter as NightDog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM us any questions or comments. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car, if you're at home, text my device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.